Welcome back to the Rogue Wave Podcast. Rogue Wave Podcast is part of the Rogue Matter Network, a new digital content platform providing programming and entertainment that shatters boundaries, colors outside the lines. Join the movement. Go Rogue, roguematter.com. Okay, last week we had Mr. Todd Black on, writer of Tokyo Blade Detectives, which just got funded on Kickstarter. Good for him.
Plural.
He brought up, somehow in the process of conversation, we were talking about TV finales that went out of their way to piss the fan base off, i.e. the worst TV series finales. We were talking about Mandalorian and how it'll eventually end and whether or not it will be a success, and I think that's how it kind of came. And I thought,
point of order, thing. I don't want to say that I don't think that any series ever went out of its way with the idea that it wanted to piss off its fan base. And said, we're going to make this finale just because we know people are going to get pissed. I don't think anyone ever approached it that way. That's all.
The end result,
this whole platform, dude.
The end result, however,
yes, well,
have successfully managed to do something. Oh yeah,
there's a really super simple explanation, but I'll let you finish your intro.
Well, no, go ahead. Super simple. Go ahead.
The super simple explanation of every TV series finale of all anything, this is all of them, is you can't please all of the people all the time, and that's what it comes down to. And you'll find, listen, I can go out today and I can find people who hated one series finale and find someone else who thought it was just fine, and it was a suitable wrap up for that show. There are very few, I mean, there are a lot of consensus arguments about, series finales and certain ones that really stand out, that yes, there's always going to be a sliding scale in anything like that. But I think that at the end of the day, if you have a really successful TV show with a cast of more than 4 characters, which is going to probably be all of them, I think that it's really difficult to write a finale that ends on a dramatic enough note to really make a solid coda for however many seasons you've been on and satisfy all of the wants of your fan base. I think that there's a way to do it that, you could go the route of, we're going to turn this into a slice of life ending where it's just like the story's going to end for all these characters, We don't necessarily have to kill off any characters. We can just have their story arcs end. They move on and have the rest of their lives. And I think that the idea of doing that, I think for most showrunners is probably way too boring. And they think that, well, we need to deliver a statement or a bang at the end of this to really put a period on the end of this show. And you look back to, which is still one of the most watched episodes of TV ever, which is MASH, and they just went home.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say Cheers is actually a good example also of a show that ended with them just hanging out in the bar. When all was said and done.
They created the conflict of him almost leaving.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, he went back to where his heart was.
Yep. Hassan, what's a good example for you? Of a show that does it right. Of a series finale that does it right.
I really enjoyed the season finale or series finale of Boardwalk Empire. I thought that was really well done.
Never watched the show.
Yeah.
And it's a mixed bag for a lot of people. But I think if you're into that show, that season finale, you're like, that's the only way the show could have ended. It's you're happy that they went where they were supposed to go with it, as opposed to, thinking about, trying to set it up for, some kind of spin-off or something like that. They're like, no, this story ends here. And so, I think walking away with satisfaction, that's probably the thing that comes to mind the most.
Yes. And I think that the other way of killing a show off, or not killing a show off, but ending a show, killing a show off is a whole other thing. Ending a show successfully in a way that the showrunners figure out a way to essentially blow up the world, so that that's a logical endpoint because there just isn't anything else. And the perfect example of that is ER, where you find out at the end that the whole thing was perceptually a vision in the son of the lead doctor's autistic son's head.
St. Elsewhere.
Yes. Oh, sorry, not ER. Yes, St. Elsewhere.
I was gonna say I don't remember ER ending that way.
Yeah. Sorry, St. Elsewhere. The one before ER. It was the ER before ER.
The ER before ER. Yeah.
Pre-ER.
That's the Franklin Richards. That's the Franklin Richards ending.
Yes.
Heroes Reborn.
And I love, and I know a lot of people don't like that. I absolutely love that idea. I loved the idea when I saw it, and when I finally got my head around it as an older, more experienced creator and writer and all those kinds of things. I like the idea even more now.
I pissed a lot of people off.
I know.
You know, but,
you know what's really funny though? One of the shows that I absolutely adored, that actually had the best series finale, but money got in the way, and they ended up bringing them back the season later, was the XFiles. The XFiles actually had what would have been, it was David Duchovny's final season, and it was season 7, I think, or season 8. And they only had him in half the shows, but they brought him back for the last 6.
Yep.
They did a really nice job. Gillian Anderson was pregnant. It was a miracle. And at the end, you find out, it's Mulder and Scully, and they've been shacking up this entire time, which fans had always asked for them to do it, and you finally get the kiss between them that fans always wanted, and it turns out, wow! Not only that, but Gillian Anderson, because of all the alien stuff and things that had happened, was infertile. So, wow, they made a miracle, and they actually ended up having this baby, and it was great. And then they're like, Chris Carter, we don't want X-Files to end because you're our #1 show. Here's a boatload of money. Come back for season 9. And it just not only was season 9 unwatchable, but then it gave us the actual. It gave us the series finale we didn't want, which was Mulder coming back and going on trial, and then all this other stuff. And then they came back again, and gave us another series
they just
finale.
Kept coming back.
The ironic part about the series finale that they just recently did was they reversed back to what should have been the actual series finale, where they reveal. Sorry for anybody who didn't catch the not very exciting last season of X-Files, that now the original pregnancy that we thought was a miracle was not. It was the smoking man was behind it and actually injected Gillian Anderson with DNA and all this other crap, but then find out at the end that she's pregnant again, even though she's like close to 50 at this point. So basically Chris Carter admitted that that's the way he should have ended the show originally, and finally 10 years later ended up doing it right. So that's my vote for series finales that went out of their way
to be horrible.
Yes.
One of the worst is definitely Dexter, as far as I'm concerned.
All the lists I found had Dexter on. I never watched it, but I know of the show.
And I'm not going to go into detail just in case, but I mean, it is just, if you've been following that show all the entire time, just the way they just, you know what? Everybody's tired. We're not even going to write this. Everyone just go home. Everyone just go home. We'll superimpose
We'll figure out something.
Yeah, we'll just use found footage. And
you've got some B-roll of Michael Hall doing something.
Horrible. And I will have to say, and it's a freaking cliche, that the Game of Thrones series finale was very disappointing.
Yes.
Now, I am not... I'm not willing to throw the entire series out just because of that. No, well, a lot of people are. They're like, it's irrelevant now because of this last season. I don't agree with that.
Let me ask you a quick question. Let me ask you a quick question about that. About the series finale. Was it either A, because of, and this is spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it's been out for more than 2 years now.
Steve hasn't seen it.
All right. Was it because of the turn?
There's nothing about it I don't know.
Was it because of the turn of Daenerys' character? Was it B, the outcome of who ends up on the thrones that upset you? Or was it C, just all of the above?
Nope. Don't have a problem with any of those things.
Okay. So what about the series finale of Game of Thrones?
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the truncation. Yeah. Everything, the thing that that made the show what it was is that it took exceptionally long times for things to happen.
Yeah,
the first 2 seasons, like traveling from one part of Westeros to the other part, it took an entire season because it's a big it's a continent, and it's kind of hard to cross a continent, even if it's a smaller, even like England. It's hard to cross England and just this and England can fit into Texas. Okay,
right.
So that tells you exactly what we're dealing with. So, the last 2 seasons where people were seemingly teleporting from one place to another. And a lot of that is just really bad time management in the space of the creators, because there were ways to get around that. They were like, we need this to happen faster than it would. So if you're gonna arrange things, we need so and so to be at this particular place by episode 3, and he is on the other side of the continent in episode 2. Okay, make the sacrifice. Take that character out of episode 2, and then have them show up in episode 3. Now you don't know how long it took for them to get there, but they didn't do that. You know, and when they ran out of source material, they fell back so hard on regular TV tropes that it was jarring for a lot of people. A lot of the stuff they did was perfectly serviceable for normal shows. But I mean, Game of Thrones was not a normal show. The source material is completely different. So
isn't it ironic that they at least in my opinion, hastily ended the show because they wanted to jump on the Star Wars stuff, and then the reaction to Game of Thrones
that's a speculation.
Well, I basically the reaction to Game of Thrones made him be like, "Hey, we don't want to touch Star Wars now."
They quit Star Wars, according to the information. So, I mean, what you're saying is that's first of all, it's a speculation. Second of all, the other part's not true. So.
I said, in my opinion. Oh, you're saying they got fired from Star Wars?
No, they quit Star Wars.
Yes, exactly. That's what I said. I said that my opinion is that they put together.
But we don't know that they
executed Game of Thrones hastily in order to move on to the Star Wars.
We don't know that that's why they did that.
I just said, in my opinion.
You didn't. You said that after I questioned it.
No, I said it twice.
And I'll tell you something, in my opinion, I think that there have been the allure of working on the Star Wars IP is so great because of our age range and where a lot of the great filmmakers working in our generation are right now. And it was so important to them as children. The allure of working in the Star Wars universe and the pull of that is so great, is when given the opportunity, it's really difficult to say no. The problem comes is when they show up for work and they realize that their hands are both tied behind their back and they're limited to a very, very small part of the sandbox to play in. I think they suddenly go, as creators, yeah, this isn't, I really want to do this.
Unless you're Ryan Johnson, in which case you can poop all over anything you want.
I think Netflix just threw them a bigger boatload of money. And they were like, wait, we could develop our own stuff and get paid.
Netflix is known for doing that. So
yeah. But okay. That's fine.
I just think that people go into the Star Wars universe hoping that they're going to be able to do what they want to do and getting a chance to really put their fingerprints on it. And I think that they get there and they say, well, you can put your fingerprints on this part.
Yeah,
but
it's fun. No, I made it as a joke.
All this Jar Jar Binks part. I don't want that.
I made it as a
all
joke.
This other stuff, you're kind of stuck.
I made it as a joke, but honestly, I think Ryan Johnson was the only one that was basically given like whatever free reign he wanted to do. Because Colin Trevorrow wanted to do a whole bunch of things and they fired him. You know,
well, we don't know why he got fired.
Ryan Johnson may have just said yes.
Well,
we don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's just
right.
All we know is the finished product of everything. The finished product of Game of Thrones was rushed. It felt rushed. Yes. Whether or not it was rushed, it felt rushed. Now, I sympathize with them because I do believe they believed they were going to get source material all the way to the end. And the guy just stopped writing. And it took 10 years. It's been 10 years since his last book. That's crazy. That's when you're a novelist and that's your only job. Yeah. It's kind of crazy that you're taking 10 years. No, I'm not down on him. Writing is freaking hard, and he's under a lot of pressure. But you've got to know that if it takes you 10 years to do a book, then that's going to cause the people who are trying to adapt your material. It's going to cause them a lot of problems.
Yeah,
and they were not up to the task, obviously, of living up to to what they had put down previously. But that doesn't change the fact that they successfully adapted some of the greatest fantasy, material that we've had in our history. So I'm not really willing to take that away from them just because last season was a little too fast.
Steve, which one calls out to you? Which one out of the top of your head do you think is like one of the worst ways to end a TV show?
For me?
Yeah.
You see, I don't know that I have one that I've ever felt bad about, that I got done watching and I was really angry about, because I understand that, like I said, I think it's hard. I think it's hard if you've been working on something for 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 or 15 seasons or however many seasons a show is around, to suddenly have to figure out a way to end it. I think that it's a very hard position to be in as a creator, unless you go into a project knowing where everything is going to end from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then in your head, all you have to do is get there.
Lost was sort of like that. And they had the idea of what the end was going to be. No, they did. No. He's got on record.
I think he says that they had an idea of what the end was going to be, but I'll tell you right now that's the most seat of the pants created show I've ever heard, read, or get the understanding about that they literally were making it up at one point as they went along without any care at all where it was headed. And they were like, we'll figure it out next season. I think that was the mindset going into that entire show. We'll figure it out next season.
So I scoured.
And then they got to the 7th one. They're like, now we got to figure it out.
No, wait, this is the last one.
Crap.
See, I'm on the other side of the fence. I thought Lost ended well enough. I thought Seinfeld ended well enough. I thought Sopranos ended well enough. How I Met Your Mother, like all these shows.
Seinfeld was odd. That was probably my strangest.
I thought Seinfeld was great. I thought that the fact that they put them all in jail was great. But I never really dug those people.
Yeah, I love the show. I love that show.
I like the show, but I mean, I was not delusional that those guys were heroes.
Right.
They were. Right. It's like And
listen, it's a sitcom. There's no heroes. What are you talking about?
Well, you know what I mean. What was better was that Curb Your Enthusiasm actually went out of its way to say, no, this guy is the purveyor of all his problems. Like he is the issue, right? He is the hero and the protagonist of the show, and that's pretty much what Seinfeld was. But it was still in that milieu of of TV protagonists, antagonists, and those guys just made everybody miserable.
Yeah,
And so, like, the fact that at the end they threw them all in jail, I thought, wow, okay, the show understands itself.
Right.
Therefore,
It always did.
I'm standing behind the whole thing.
I scoured a bunch of lists, and the one show that kept popping up on all these lists, though, it's surprising, actually. Star Trek Enterprise. They said basically it popped up on all the lists as the worst TV series. So to me,
because it's pure crap.
Give me context as a Star Trek fan, Hassan, as to why that is the worst TV show.
Well, it's kind of a spin on the St. Elsewhere ending, but in a really bad way. Because the way they ended Star Trek Enterprise, you could be forgiven for believing that they were trying to say that the entire show was a holodeck program that Riker was watching. And that's how they ended it. They literally recapped the last events of the NX-01 Enterprise while Riker is sitting there like observing it because he's going through his own issues with Admiral Pressman and the Pegasus and another rabbit hole that I won't go down. And so he's watching that to try to figure out how to deal with this particularly bad situation. And he's talking to Counselor Troy about how to process the information that he's watching. And in the meantime, the events of the show are happening while they're standing there. So it's like all of a sudden the agency of the show is just taken out of the hands of the main characters of the show and put in the hands of the next generation people. Yeah. As just an afterthought. It's pretty bad.
Weird.
And they spoil a big moment in it because one of the characters dies. One of the main, and they go, yeah, it's too bad he didn't know he's going to be dead in 2 days. And then they break the commercial, and you're like, what the fuck am I watching?
That's a super big right there. That
all right, deserves it.
You know what though? That reaction proves why this was one of the most hated. I read this article on Cracked, and they said things were awkward behind the scenes too. Jonathan Frakes, who played Commander Riker, confided the episode was an unpleasant memory, and it hurt Scott Bakula's feelings. The writer even apologized for how much the finale pissed fans off.
Listen. There is definitive proof about how that was unsuccessful. Which you will not,
I have hard proof.
No, I mean I'm not saying it's my opinion. If you won't, but if you watch there are documentaries on every season of you're not good. Who's gonna spend time doing that? Because it's like 9 hours. There are documentaries on each season. There's a CBS
sure.
did a documentary per season, and each documentary is connected. So they were, you can obviously see that it was all filmed at once and then dispersed throughout the DVDs.
Oh,
and the entire documentary is Brandon Braga, who was the showrunner, apologizing for the show, like for 9 hours.
Wow.
We didn't do this. We should have done that. We should have more done it this way. I'm sorry if the fans feel this way about it. And he's talking about hate mail that he got. He's talking about showrunners that he had to fire. It's just a circus.
Wow.
And then a lot of the actors basically are talking about, oh, we should have done this. It would have been more interesting if we had done that. It was sold as the right stuff meets Star Trek. And it just, and all of a sudden we had a ship. The ship worked fine. There were no kinks to work out. There were no conflicts. There were no aliens. I mean, it is astonishing, information to digest while watching it. And obviously it's a proof positive. They knew that, what we made here wasn't all that great. So,
all right. Well, chime in. Let us know what is the one series finale that angered you guys out there. We always.
Oh, as a slight aside, my runner-up to one of the best series finale ever is the series finale to the U.S. version of Being Human, which was great. It's actually not a lot of people know the show, so it doesn't
I know
really
the show.
matter.
I never watched it. I didn't watch either the UK or the US one. It was an early Sci-Fi Channel original, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The UK version goes way off the rails.
Because they didn't have the pressure of having anyone watch them. So,
ouch.
It's easy to end a show no one cares about.
Good point.
And not piss off.
We're really going to piss off our 6 fans.
Of people. That's like when we mess up on our show. It doesn't matter. There's only 6 people.
What stood out for you that you liked about it, Jose?
It just wrapped the story up really nicely.
How many seasons of that show were there?
4 seasons, okay. 4 solid seasons, and it just ends on a great note.
And it was a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost living together. Is that what the premise was? Yeah, okay.
And it's a surprisingly really solid show. It's one of the best pieces of fantasy material that's ever been.
I always forget about that, Joe. It's funny you brought that up.
It's a great show. You should check it out. You will not be disappointed.
Okay.
And Sam Witwer.
Ooh, so Sam Witwer.
He's the vampire. So
that's right. That's right.
Pretty good stuff.
All right, we'll chime in. I want to thank our guest, Steve Hoveke. Steve, tell everyone about Cinementals and all the other cool stuff you got going on.
Cinemental, a podcast, Hassan, the Lord of the live stream below, gets to...
that one's much catchier because it's alliteration. Go ahead.
That's right. Gets to sit in with myself and another friend of ours, and we have guests on, and we have the guests to pick 2 films for us to watch, and we dive pretty deeply into them and kind of discuss whether or not we like or dislike their choices, and it's fun, and we do it... generally, it's on a couple releases a week. You can check it out at cinementalpod.com, or you can find it on any of the podcast places that you normally get your podcasts.
Very cool. Next week, we wrap up Grono, Mandalorian, the penultimate chapter.
You mean Grogu?
No, I said Grono. Because of what happened. See, I was being clever.
Oh.
Christ. I can't believe
you're doing like a Mr. Bill thing.
Grono.
You're the 2 of you, really. Really. All right. Okay.
I think we need a third host on this show.
Yeah. No.
I
think the show is a good. Yeah. Do not worry. I will grab my stuff and leave.
You might not have a son. It might just be me. We'll see you guys next week. Rogue Wave.